In this video, we're going to cover Pecron's newest addition to the whole home backup power market, the new Pecron E3600LFP. Now, these are their largest units to date, and they're capable of powering a house, which we're going to demonstrate in this video. I've reviewed Pecron products for years, and admittedly, these units, they surprise me. They've got a lot of the same features and capabilities of much larger, expensive units, but at substantially lower price points. I've got about every unit on the market designed for powering your home, and this one really stands out, which we're going to cover in this video. Now, let me start off by stating that I'm always hesitant to review expensive products like these, as I know many in my community are on tight budgets, but I do know that some people are considering these types of options, and hopefully this information will help you to determine if they're good fits for your specific needs. So here's what we're going to cover in this video. We're going to go over the features and specs. What are they capable of doing? We're going to test the units by powering this house. We're going to see how they stack up against the competition in both capabilities and pricing. And I'll disclose how I get compensated for these types of videos. And lastly, I'll give you my final thoughts on these units. Now, if anytime during the video you want to check any of these out, I'll post links in the description and comment section below along with the coupon code. So let's go ahead and jump in. Features and specs. Let's look at the specs first, and then we're going to jump into testing these units out. Now, for AC output, you have the 20 amp plugins here on the front and a 30 amp plug-in that you can output 3600 watts. And if you tie two of these together with their hub, they can output 240 volts at 30 amps for a whopping 7200 watts. We're going to test that momentarily and show you how that works. For DC output, you have the standard USB plugins, and for 12 volt, you have 30, 10, and 5 amp ports. For AC charging, it has the ability to charge from an AC source at 30 amps or 3600 watts, allowing you to charge the battery in about 1.3 hours from the AC source, which is pretty impressive. They also ship with a standard 20 amp cable that you can plug into your typical home wall socket. Now, speaking of charging, it also has a bidirectional inverter, so we can charge both from solar and an AC source at the same time. The interface to adjust settings is the biggest update that I've ever seen on a Pecron model. They give you a lot of options that more established units I've reviewed don't even have. For example, one of the features that I love on these types of units is the ability to control AC charging speed. And this really comes in handy when you have to control your AC charging based on your options. For example, if you wanted to charge this from a small generator that's, let's say, only outputs 1000 watts, then you can reduce the AC input of this Pecron to draw less power. You can adjust that value via the interface or with their app. Also, you can control the depth of discharge and the amount of charge, which comes in handy when trying to protect your battery. Some of these more expensive units that I have, they don't even allow you to control these variables. Now, regarding restarting solar, if the batteries drain all the way down, it has this capability. So let's say you are using this for backup power overnight, you completely drain the batteries. When the sun comes up in the morning and you have your solar panels out, it will turn on and start charging. Some units require that you actually physically turn them on before they can start charging. As far as expandability, you can add on 4 additional batteries per unit for a total of 15 kilowatt hours. They've got these cables that you can use to attach them together here on the side of the units. Each of these solar generators has a 3 kilowatt hour capacity, and each of these add-on batteries also has a capacity of 3 kilowatt hours. If you have 2 units like shown here, you can add on a total of 8 batteries for a total capacity of 30 kilowatt hours. Shown here, I have 2 of their units tied together with their 240 volt hub with add-on batteries with a capacity of 12 kilowatt hours. We're going to demonstrate this capability momentarily. Now, for solar, you can accept 2400 watts per head unit. You'll notice that it also has 3 MPPT solar inputs with 1 for low voltage. Now, shown here, I have 4 of their 200 watt panels connected together, tied to 1 unit, and for the other head unit, I have 2 of their 300 watt panels connected together. You can charge via AC and solar at the same time. Now, regarding the app, it's fairly basic, but it does give you a few power capabilities. First of all, these units can connect to Wi-Fi, so you can control them and monitor them remotely, which is a very nice feature to have. And you can turn on the AC and DC remotely, change the AC charging speed, and update other basic features. Now, regarding battery chemistry, as you would expect, these use lithium iron phosphate batteries that are rated at 3,500 charge cycles to 80%. So what does that mean? After charging and discharging 3,500 times, or roughly about 10 years of daily use, you would expect the battery to hold about 80% of its original charge, or roughly 2,500 watt hours. Think about your phone. After a year or 2 of usage, the battery, it just doesn't hold as much as it originally did when you purchased it. Sure, it still works, but you're just not going to get as long of a battery life as you did when you first bought it. It's the same principle with these. Okay, for the UPS or uninterruptible power supply, if you have items plugged into the AC outputs on the front, and the unit itself is plugged into a power source such as the wall and the power supply goes out, it's going to switch over to the batteries in under 20 milliseconds. This really comes in handy for those with medical devices or other critical electrical equipment. Since my current house that I'm in is relatively small, if I have one of these units powering my lines in my house and the power goes down, there's an exception where we'll show in a moment. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier in the video, the price for these are low compared to comparable units. At the time of recording this video, they're on sale for $1,600, which for 3,072 watt hours, that comes out to about 52 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, each of these can add on batteries that cost about $900. That's roughly 30 cents per kilowatt hour. Now, if you told me even years ago that we'd see 30 cents per kilowatt hour for a lithium iron phosphate battery, I'm not sure I believe you. So yeah, these are priced very competitively. Testing. So we're here at my new place, and what I've done is I've had an electrician install a custom setup so that we can actually plug these units into the house. We're going to be able to test these on 240 and 120. Now, in the future, I'm going to be doing some videos coming up soon, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. I've got a lot of these solar generators here behind me. We're going to be doing a pretty big comparison of all these whole home units in the next, hopefully, week or two. But let's go ahead and jump in. And what we're going to do again is plug in the 240 into the house, and we're going to begin to use different devices like our stove, the refrigerator, and so many things that you would practically want to use if the power were to go down. I've got an AC disconnect switch here that disconnects a house from the grid. Then when I flip this transfer switch, it flips a connection over to these AC inputs. They're both 30 amp plugins. This plugin is 120 and this one is 240. Whenever I plug in one of these solar generators to either the 120 or the 240, it allows me to power this panel that powers the entire house. Again, I had a professional build this out, and if you have a transfer switch set up, yours may look a little different, but the concept is the same. We're also going to put the cover on this later. Right now, we're going to change a few of the switches, but for now, we've got the cover off until we finalize the switch placement. So let me show you how this setup works in conjunction with our solar generators. I'm going to first disconnect the house from the grid with this AC disconnect switch. We're going to use the transfer switch to then switch over to these two AC inputs. One of them is being used by our 240 volt plug-in that we've got tied into our two Pecron units. When we turn these on, they're then going to power into the panel which powers the house. Now, right now we only have our refrigerator in the kitchen and the lights above me that are being powered. Everything else in the house is turned off. So when I pull the switch, you're going to see the lights go off. I'm going to push the buttons on the front for the AC output, and then we'll see the power kick back on. So here we go. Okay, I'm going to turn on the AC on both of these. Okay, AC is now on. It's going to take just a second for these to kick on. And there we go. So now we have our power back on now that we've turned the AC on. And let me show you here the front how much these are pulling. All right, so let's look at the front to see how much they're outputting. On this unit, it's not outputting anything. It's at 0 watts. Okay. On this unit, as you can see, we've got 491 watts, 490. Shouldn't they be splitting the wattage between the two of them since they're connected here with this hub that then ties into the house? Well, the answer is no. Let me explain why. Let me just say up front, I'm not an electrician and I don't play one here on YouTube. So I at least know the basic concepts of what's happening here in the panel behind me that I can explain it to you. So if you're hiring an electrician or you're doing this self, hopefully this will help you. All right, here we are inside of our panel. And as you can see, we have these different circuits. And what we have is this. All of these right here are 120. But as you can see, some of these are 240. These are our larger items. We have, let's see, the 50 amp is our stove. I believe this is either our dryer. Oh no, this is a hot water heater. And this is our electric dryer. Everything else is on 120. Okay, why does that matter? Well, the items on 120 are all on line 1. As you can see, they're spaced out on line 1. These over here, the 50 amp, or rather 50 and the 30s, these are on line 1 and 2. They bridge them. And so what's happening is anything on line 1 is going to pull from this unit. Now, if we were to move some of these circuits to line 2 in these gaps right here, and we were to turn on those, those items right here, well, what would happen is everything on line 2 would pull from this one. So what's the moral here? Well, if you're gonna set this up and you want items to be able to be equally split between the 2 units that are on 120, if your setup is like mine, you're gonna have to divide them up, some on line 1 and some on line 2. I'm gonna have my electrician do that here for me in the next week. But again, I just wanted to explain this before we jump in and start the test. Now, before we put this under load at 240, let's go through and add a few items on here at 120 to see how this performs. Now, again, as we talked about earlier, everything's on line 1, so it's going through this one right now for 120. Right now, we're at 336. So what I'm gonna do is come over here, and we've got a mini split up here. And so I'm gonna go ahead and turn this on. As we can see, this is coming online. So let's come over here and see how this handles. Now, the mini split, it usually takes about a minute or so to wind up, but what we see is the power is already moving up, and we're at 665, 529. It's kind of fluctuating, and you're gonna see that go up. Now, we'll come back. Well, actually, it's starting to go up. There it goes. So it's starting to kick in. Now we're getting up to about 1200. I think it roughly pulls about 1,000 watts to run. Now, let me take you over here, and I'm gonna show you the other mini split that I have installed. I've got one up here. And again, what we'll do is we'll turn this on and let's take a look and see how that performs. And again, this is all on line 1, so this is gonna be powering off that 1 unit. So let's go over here and check that out to see how it performs. So, hey, let me come over here. Okay, so we're now running 2 of the units on the same line. As you can see, when we left, it was about 1200, it's 13. That other one's gonna start winding up, that other mini split that we turned on, and it should spike up to around about 23, 2400 watts here in just a second. Again, we've got our lights on in here, and we've got the refrigerator, this mini split, and the one in the other room. So let's see what happens. We'll give it a second. Okay, as you can see, it took about 30 seconds, but it's now up to, about 2200 watts, which I mentioned a second ago. They pull about 1,000 watts each. So we can go to a maximum of 3,600 watts. So we can find something else that we can plug in and push this even further. Okay, so let me turn on some lights. We've got the lights in here. Apologize for the mess. I'm doing a lot of work in here. Let's turn on these lights. Then we'll turn on these lights. Then we'll come over here to this. Got some lights on. Okay, then we've got this hallway light. Then I've also got this light. And let's go in and see how much it's pulling now. Okay, so all those lights we added about 500 watts. So we're running about 2,700 right now. Again, this can go up to 3,600. So as you can see, it's capable of doing everything. And again, remember, this is gonna be pulling nothing. There's not gonna be any output rather, because it is all on line 1. So let's go ahead, and what we'll do is we'll turn everything off, and we'll now test everything on 240. We'll begin to test some of the heavier devices like our hot water heater, stove, and the dryer. So we just went through a situation where we tested 120. Or again, we were running everything off this one because it was piping into line 1, as we talked about earlier. What we're gonna do now is show splitting the load between the 2 devices by using 240. All right, at the moment, we've got 368 being output by this one, which is on line 1, powering 120. It's handling our lights and our refrigerator in the other area. So what we're gonna do now is push a load, or rather start a 240 to set a load to pull from these, excuse me, not push. So this one is a hot water heater, and I have it off. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on. Hot water heater is in the corner. We're gonna hear it kick on, and we'll look at what it does to the front of this. And again, so, all right, you kind of saw the lights. I don't know if you saw the lights dim down, but that's the hot water heater back there. Yeah, it's making a noise. I'm sorry if you can't hear it. Let me come back here. But again, here's our hot water heater. So let's come over and take a look and see what's happening here on the front of these devices. Now remember, a second ago, we were originally pulling about, 300 watts. Now we're up to 2,400. And so this one is at 2,100. So again, this makes sense because the lights in the refrigerator are pulling from this one, and now it's splitting the hot water heater between these 2. So we're seeing an even split. So that's pretty consistent. Okay, so let's turn this hot water heater off for a moment. The lights kind of flickered there. All right, so now what we're gonna do is turn on our electric dryer. Let's take a look and see how that performs. So if we come over here, sorry, it's messy in here, but I'm gonna go ahead and turn this on. And we're gonna hit start. Let's come over here and take a look. Oh yeah, the lights definitely flickered there for a second. So, all right, you're seeing a big jump on these. 2700, 2600, that one's at 31. So this one's running almost at capacity because again, this one can go up to 30, well, these can go up to 3600 watts output. So they're handling it, but again, they're splitting the load. Okay, so let's turn off our electric dryer. So what I want to do now is power our stove. Right now we've got this on and we just turned off the electric dryer. So this is back down to 0 and that's at 371. So I'm going to go in the kitchen. I'm going to turn on the burners and we'll come back. So I'm over here at the stove. So let's go ahead and just turn on the oven real quick. And we're going to set that to about 350, 400. Let's go over and check out and see what the load is doing. Okay, so again, these are pulling evenly. This is pulling 1280, this is pulling 1639. So again, you're seeing an even split. Why don't we turn on a few of the burners on top of the stove and see what happens. Okay, so we're back at the stove. Let's turn on this burner right here. And why don't we turn on this rear one here? So we're pulling a pretty good load now. We should be, closer to 3600. So let's go back and see what's going on. Okay, so we're back and yeah, we can see we're pulling pretty good load, about 25 on that one and 29 on this one. So again, we're splitting the load pretty evenly. Okay, so I turned everything off. Let's go back and see what's happening with the units. Okay, so I'm back now at the units. This one again is back down to 0 and this one is again just running our refrigerator and the lights here in the garage. So now that we've tested 120, 240, we see the units are capable, but let's look at UPS. Right now, I've got this being powered by a 30 amp power source. Right now, I am plugged into the house. I'm powering the lights above me in the refrigerator, and we're outputting 375 watts. So what happens if I turn on the air conditioner? Let's put a load on it. Okay, so now that we've turned on the air conditioner, we're up to 1300 watts going out to the house, and we have 3500 coming in. So it is acting as a UPS. So now the goal is to turn off the power that's coming in and see what happens to see if this is a true UPS. So let's give it a try. Yeah, wow. Okay, that switched right over. I mean, there was a brief flicker. It goes under 20 milliseconds, but the air conditioner is still being powered. It's still at 1300 watts. And so it does handle, now here's the key. This only works as a UPS at 120. If I tie these two together at 240 with the hub and output to the house, and I had 30 amps or 15 amps coming in to either of the units, again acting as a UPS, it won't work under 240. But for 120, again, when we just are plugging into one unit, sending it to the house with 120, it will work as a UPS. But again, 240 does not work as UPS. Competition. At the beginning of the video, I said one of the talking points we would go over in this video is competition. As I showed earlier, I pretty much have all the manufacturers' options here in the room around me. I've got Jackery, I've got EcoFlow, I've got Anchor, Hysalis, Pecron. Again, you name it, I've pretty much got the main units. These are specifically designed to be easy to set up as opposed to something like a Tesla Powerwall that requires a professional electrician installation. These with a transfer switch like the one that I have behind me can be pretty much set up by about anyone. They're not that difficult. But what I'm going to do is next week, I'm going to take and compare all of these different units. We're going to put them all through the paces and we're going to show how they stack up against each other. So this is one of those scenarios where you've got to check back next week and I'll have a very detailed video with a spreadsheet where we'll go over all the considerations if you're in the market for buying something like this. Compensation. Regarding compensation, the approach I take on the channel is pretty simple. I do charge a fee to produce a video that comes to the channel. What does that mean? When these companies send me these units, there's times that we have to go through and study it. We have to test it. We have to put a script together. I've got to film it. Then we have to edit it. There's a lot of time that goes from start to finish. Why do I say that? There's a big difference between a production cost and a pay-for-play approach. A pay-for-play is basically a company comes and says, hey, we've got this marketing budget. We'll pay you X amount of money to promote this product on your channel. And I've gotten many, many of those emails. I do not accept those offers because if there's something that I test and it's just not up to standard, then it's not going to get on the channel. I'm not going to tell a company, yes, I'll push your product on my channel. I've seen some products out there that actually I have here that have been sent to me and they turn out to be duds. And I've seen other channels go ahead and promote them because they had pretty large marketing budgets. Why am I saying that? Again, I just want you to know there's a consideration that goes into. Usually what I first do is find a company that I know and I trust, a reputable brand. There's about 8 different companies I've worked with over the years. There's maybe 1 out of all the companies I've worked with that ended up going under, unfortunately. But for the most part, all of these that I've been representing and showing here on the channel are companies that I trust and I know are going to be around. They have a proven track record. Apart from that, production costs, I also have an affiliate commission that I get for the sale of each product, but that's pretty much in a nutshell the approach I take. Final thoughts. Whenever I test these type of units, usually the biggest question that comes up is, well, what's the best bang for your buck? What's the most affordable option? You're looking at them. This unit is $1,600. The add-on battery is $900. And at that price point, I'm again surrounded by units here in this garage. There's nothing really at that price range with these features, especially. There's one manufacturer that for years has had many of the features almost exclusively up until recently. A lot of the other manufacturers are adding on the ability to control the AC input speed via their app, the depth of discharge, where you can define that, how much you can charge it up to, being able to control it remotely, the AC and DC via their app over Wi-Fi. It's all these little things that actually do make a big difference. Whenever I use some of these larger units and I'm out somewhere and being able to control and monitor them remotely, it does come in handy. So having said that, I was just kind of surprised at this price point, all the features you get. So again, what I'm going to do is if you want to wait for the comparison video, the name of it will be I believe we're going to call it Whole Home Solar Generators 2024. So if you're watching this in the future, you can go into the library and look for that and you'll find the video where it compares to see how it stacks up. But this is easily the most bang for your buck, the affordable option in that whole mix. So having said that, I've worked with Pecron for years. I've enjoyed their products as far as most of them in the past have been kind of a what you see is what you get. No frills, very simple. They do the job, but you don't have a lot of features. It's really changed with this one where they've really, again, brought it up to standard with some of the more advanced options. So if you have any thoughts, any feedback, feel free to post that below. And as always, stay safe out there.